All right, welcome everybody. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Ms. Goldsberry. I'm the principal at Yes Prep Eisenhower this year, and I am excited to lead us through this very unusual year. Bienvenidos a todos. Mi nombre es Ms. Goldsberry, soy la directora en Yes Prep en este año, y en un momento Ms. Cabrera va a ayudar en traducir por mí porque mi español no es muy bueno. But we are excited to have all of you guys here. My goal today is to talk through some updates about what we expect for the upcoming year, and then to leave open some opportunities for questions. But throughout the meeting, if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and we'll make sure to pause throughout the presentation to answer those.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Miss Cabrera, yo soy la recepcionista de Yes Prep Eisenhower. Un placer de tenerlos a todos aquí. Estoy hablando de parte de la directora Miss Goldsberry, que le deja saber que está muy contenta del año escolar cuando empiece, que empieza el lunes, como ya saben, agosto 24. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, escríbanlo en el chat durante la sección y ahí les contestaremos. Gracias.
All right, we're going to share today some updates about how we're approaching health and safety this year, what academics are going to look like for the foreseeable future, and how we're going to continue to build community and culture, and then the resources that we'll be providing to you in the upcoming weeks to help solve any technology issues or just make sure that you and your students are set up for the school year.
Ok, vamos a compartir ahora la seguridad del campus, cómo vamos a estar actuando para que ustedes estén seguros de que sus hijos están seguros en la escuela, sobre la tecnología y los eventos que vienen a continuación.
And then we ask everyone should automatically be muted. That'll help everyone to hear better. And if you've got questions, please type them into the question box.
Por favor, le vamos a pedir que todos se pongan en silencio sus teléfonos para poder llevar la reunión a cabo. Y vamos a empezar con la sección.
Okay. I want to start by briefly introducing some of our campus leaders. Some of them are on the line and some of them aren't, but these are the people who are really going to be your resource this year for any questions that you have. So first and foremost, our directors team, these are the folks who lead each of our major departments. So my name is Megan Goldsberry, I'm the principal. We also have our director of student support, Ms. Bruel, our director of academics, Mr. Musa, our Director of College Counseling, Dr. Parrish, and our Director of Operations, Ms. Hogg. And you will receive contact information for all the folks that I'm about to introduce, but I wanted you to have a chance to see everyone's faces at least, so you kind of have an idea of who the team are that are going to be supporting you this year.
Como ven en la pantalla de ustedes, ahí tienen todas las personas que son del liderazgo de la escuela de Yes Prep Eisenhower. Para empezar tenemos la señora Goldsberry, que es la directora. También tenemos Ms. Pro, que es la directora de ayuda y soporte a los estudiantes. También tenemos el director de académico, Mr. Abdul Usa. También tenemos la persona de consejería de la universidad, Dr. Parrish. Y también tenemos la persona, Ms. Hogg, que es la directora de operaciones.
Our student support team is made up of Dean Thomas and Ms. Waters. These two are available to support your students with any social, emotional, or cultural need that they might have, and they'll also be managing cultural programming in the time where we are virtual. So if you have any needs, these are your first 2 points of contact to reach out to.
También tenemos los decanos de los estudiantes que soportan a los estudiantes con la consejería. Tenemos a Alice Thomas, la decana de estudiantes, y Alexis Water, que es la persona, la consejera de que le ofrece soporte a los estudiantes. Si tienen alguna pregunta y alguna pregunta sobre la cultura, etcétera, pues pueden accesar a las decanas de los estudiantes.
Next up is our academics team. These are the people who are working with teachers to help them adapt to the virtual setting. They're also your point of contact if you have a special education student, a student who's learning English, or if you have any testing needs.
También tenemos las personas que son del equipo de académico, como pueden ver ahí en pantalla, Brandon Hamilton, Tamara Carter, John Gray y Jessica Crandall. Estas personas son las personas que usted tienen que accesar si tienen algún estudiante que tenga alguna necesidad especial para el aprendizaje o si está aprendiendo también el idioma del inglés.
Next, gone too far. Next, we have our college counseling department. These are our college counselors, Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Watkins, who are going to work directly with your 11th and 12th graders to make sure that they stay on track for college readiness. So even if your student is virtual, they're still going to have a one-on-one college counselor who will work with them to make sure they're getting applications in, that they're ready for everything they need for college.
También tenemos las personas que son los consejeros para la universidad, Ms. Cunningham y Ms. Watkins, que son las personas que aún están en línea, los estudiantes ahora, son las personas que van a tener, que les van a dar las consejerías y que van a estar pendientes de sus hijos para del 11 grado y del 12 grado para ayudarlo con las decisiones en cuanto a la universidad se refiere.
And finally, each grade level has a designated grade level chair who is your initial point of contact if you have any questions that are specific to the grade level that your student is in. So that's Ryan Smith, Brian Barahona, Alexis Taylor, and Dr. Daryl Hooker.
También tenemos los encargados, las personas encargadas por el grado. Tenemos al señor Ryan Smith, que es la persona encargada del 9º grado. Brian Barahona, que es encargado del grado 10. Alexis Taylor, que es la encargada del 11 grado. Y el señor Dr. Daryl Hooker, que es el encargado del 12 grado.
And if you have any questions specific to the operations of campus, that could be registration, enrollment, supplies, any of those things, this is the team that you'll reach out to, our operations team.
También si tienen algunas preguntas sobre de operaciones, de registración, asistencia, etcétera, estas son las personas que van a ustedes a alcanzar a llamar. Okay, Ms. Godoy, Ms. Perla, yo y Ms. Miranda Evans.
All right, I want to dig in a little to what you can expect this year. So for those of you who have been with Yes Prep Eisenhower, you know our mission is to create lifelong learners who lead, innovate, and create possibility. That is still our mission. This year, our vision is to ensure that we're creating a consistent anti-racist community and that we're providing academic, social, and emotional support that's preparing your student for long-term success. We want to make sure that even in this unusual year, your students are on track for college readiness.
Si algunos de ustedes ya han estado con nosotros en el campus, conocen nuestra misión, que es que existe crear una experiencia de vida donde aprendan y sean innovadores, que tengan liderazgo y creen cambios positivos y avances tecnológicos en la vida en este tiempo del siglo XXI. Y también una visión también es que estamos siendo un campus antirracista, soportando y dándole la bienvenida a la comunidad, prohibiendo soporte académico, soporte socioemocional y también creando oportunidades de igualdad para los estudiantes, para que los estudiantes se preparen para que tengan un éxito a largo tiempo.
Our three big priorities this year are student health and safety, college readiness, and community, culture, and support. And I'm going to break down what we're doing in each of those areas next.
Nuestras prioridades son la salud y la seguridad, la preparatoria para la universidad y el soporte de la comunidad cultural de la comunidad.
So first, health and safety. The earliest that we're going to return to campus is September 8th. It is likely that it will be later than that when we first have students return to campus. When we do return, you'll have the opportunity as parents to once again make the decision whether you want your student to be learning virtually or inside the building.
¿Cuándo vamos a regresar al campus? Lo más temprano que vamos a regresar al campus es septiembre, September 8th, septiembre 8, para la familia, para continuar aprendiendo. También van a tener la oportunidad de que si quieren elegir que sus estudiantes sigan aprendiendo desde casa, también lo van a poder hacer. Y, a ver, good.
When we return to campus, we will be following a variety of safety protocols that we'll share with you in more detail at the time, but that will likely include temperature checks, masks and face coverings, and some adjusted procedures for how we do things like lunch, mornings, and the amount of time that students are spending transitioning. We will follow UIL guidelines when it comes to athletics and clubs, and we'll defer to Aldine. So if you have a student who participates in band or sports, we'll continue to follow Aldine's lead in terms of how those will take place this year.
Regresando al campus cultural, vamos a regresar. La seguridad, los protocolos a seguir para seguridad son cubrirse la cara con máscara, tomando las temperaturas, reduciendo el movimiento de estudiantes en el área del edificio, ajustando los procedimientos del almuerzo y no más de 2 estudiantes van a ser permitidos en los baños. Y también los estudiantes y el personal se ha requerido que usen máscara en todo tiempo mientras estén en la escuela y habrán estaciones también que se te harán para con los hand sanitizer, lo que es los desinfectantes y también las toallitas desinfectantes. También si su estudiante hace deporte, van a seguir las reglas de UIL para las comunidades. Eso será con la comunidad de Aldine, que es quien provee los deportes en Yes Prep Eisenhower.
If you have any questions related to operations, our phone lines are going to be open from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 to 4 p.m. once the school year begins, and you can set up an appointment to visit campus. We will not have staff members on campus daily until we return to campus in order to make sure that we're protecting the safety and security of our staff members. However, we will set up appointments with you if you need to visit campus for any reason. This is the number that you can call to reach Ms. Cabrera, and if you've got questions about paperwork, this is the email that you can use to contact Ms. Godoy.
Okay, las operaciones, una vez que las clases empiecen en línea, podrán llamar a la escuela de lunes a viernes de 7 de la mañana a 12 del mediodía y de 1 de la tarde a 4 de la tarde. Usted puede hacer una cita para ir a visitarnos en el campus, pero necesita, como ya repetí, una cita debido a que no estamos ahí físicamente. Cuando vengan al campus, deben de seguir las reglas apropiadas de seguridad, las precauciones apropiadas y le vamos a pedir probablemente que espere afuera, no que entre el edificio. Como ya dije, deben de usar una máscara para irnos a visitar. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, sea de rematriculación o sea de los papeles, pueden enviar un email a Abby Godoy. Ahí está, abby.godoy@yesprep.org. Y o si no, pueden ser en contacto al 713-967-7926 conmigo.
When we return to campus, students will stay in the same general class schedule that they have virtually. We anticipate that class sizes will be smaller and we will have a goal of minimizing transition. So students may stay in the same classroom for more than one period. We will still have tutorials, but tutorials may be virtual even if students are back in the building.
Cuando regresemos a clase, las clases y los horarios se van a hacer con la menor transición posible, queriendo decir que vamos a tratar de que los estudiantes estén en un aula por más tiempo. Probablemente no van a hacer transición. También las clases serán más pequeñas. Sí habrá tutoría, pero probablemente que la tutoría sea virtual.
So I want to share a little bit about what the classes are going to look like for this year, because it'll be a little different than in the past. Just as a high-level overview, class will start next Monday, or this upcoming Monday, the 24th. For the first week of school, we'll be running a shortened schedule. So students will be in classes on their computer from 7 to 11:15, and then the afternoon will be independent work time. So they'll have some tasks to complete, but they can do it on their own. Then we will start on the 31st, the traditional length school day from 7 a.m. to 2:35. And at some point, no earlier than September 8th, we will have the opportunity for students to begin learning in the school building, and we'll keep you updated once we know what that date will be.
Okay, cuando la clase empieza en la semana siguiente, agosto 24, los estudiantes van a empezar a las 7 de la mañana, hasta las 11:15. Después de las 11:15 hasta las 2:35 será para que ellos hagan las tareas y las asignaciones que se le han dado. Agosto 31 será el día completo de clase de 7 de la mañana a 2:35 de la tarde. No antes del lunes 8 de septiembre será que el edificio sea reabierto y la familia pueden elegir para el próximo para después de ahí si quieren que los estudiantes estén remoto, o sea, virtual o en persona.
A big message that I have for those of you who were with us last year is that virtual school this year is going to look fundamentally different than what Keep Yes Prep learning looked like in the fall, or the spring, I'm sorry.
Algo que le puede decir es que se va a ver fundamentalmente diferente a lo que Yes Prep Learning, aprendiendo Yes Prep en la primavera era. O sea que este año cuando empecemos la clase va a ser diferente a cuando estábamos aprendiendo en línea en la primavera.
So the way it'll be different is we'll follow the same bell schedule that we would during a normal school year. So school will run from 7 a.m. to 2:35. It will be a mix of live, or what we're calling synchronous classes, and independent or asynchronous learning. And I'll show you a schedule for this in just a moment, but essentially students will log on and be in a class virtually for a block of time, and then have a block of time to work on work independently. We're going to use Microsoft Teams and Schoology, both of which students are going to get training on during the first week of school. And another thing that's different is we're making sure to build in time for culture and team building by having students continue to participate in advisories, even if they're virtually learning.
Va a ser diferente, el horario va a ser de 7 de la mañana a 2:35. Va a ser el horario, va a haber mezclas de clases en vivo que serán sincronizadas y clases independientes que le dicen asincronizada, aprendizaje asincronizado. Van a estar usando Teams y Schoology y va a haber un tiempo para la cultura y para hacer construcción de equipo.
So this is an example of what a student's schedule might look like. At any given time, a student is taking 4 or 5 classes that they're going to see every single day for one semester. So a student's schedule might look like they're in English, math, science, and an elective or a world language. And for each of those classes, you'll see that they've got about 45 minutes where they're synchronous or live, and 45 minutes where they're asynchronous or participating in independent work.
Como ustedes pueden ver ahí un horario de inglés, por ejemplo, es de 7 de la mañana a 7:45 y después de 7:45 a 8:30. Primero van a estar, por ejemplo, en vivo, sincronizados, y después van a estar asincronizados, donde entonces van a hacer los trabajos independientes.
Some classes are going to be offered only in one semester, and some classes will only be offered in the other semester. So for example, in this picture, you can see a 9th grade student might take English all year long, but take world geography or social studies in the first semester and biology in the second semester. The benefit of that is that students are only needing to focus on 4 or 5 classes at a time, rather than trying to virtually learn 8 different courses.
Como ustedes pueden ver, los estudiantes van a tomar, por ejemplo, algunas clases van a ser por semestre y otras clases van a ser durante el año entero. Por ejemplo, el inglés es el año entero. Y el álgebra, pero por ejemplo, en un semestre van a tomar geografía mundial, mientras otros semestres van a tomar biología, y así sucesivamente.
A couple of you have asked about when you will receive schedules. We are actively in the process of scheduling and working with Aldi and ISD to make sure we've got our schedules worked out with them. Students should receive their schedule early next week, and it'll be available in Skyward, which is the system you used for enrollment. And during the first couple days of school, we'll walk students through how to access that schedule in Skyward.
Ustedes, como ustedes probablemente se están preguntando por los horarios. Los horarios lo van a recibir a partir del lunes y van a poder entonces hacerlo va a ser vía Skyward, que lo van a recibir, van a estar disponibles en Skyward.
So we're creating schedules right now based on the new scheduling requirements. Students should have received their Teams passwords, which is what they'll use for the first couple days of school, when they got their laptops. And they're going to receive a link to join the first session on Monday morning. What we're going to do is on Thursday or Friday, I'm going to send out parent notes that include links for everything they need for the first days of school. And we'll also post that on our social media. So all they will need on Monday morning is to go to the kickoff session, which will be whole school. And from there, we'll provide direction for where to go for the rest of the day and how to access their schedules from there on. One thing I do want to note is because of the need to provide both virtual and in-person sections of different courses, we may not be able to accommodate as many schedule preferences this year as we may have in the past. Students will still get all the courses they need to be on track for graduation, but there may be some preferenced courses that need to be taken next year or that we won't be able to accommodate at this time.
Okay. Como ustedes pueden ver, los horarios se le van a enviar el viernes. Ustedes recogieron las cuentas de la contraseña y el usuario. Se le distribuyó durante el día que se le fueron a llevar las computadoras, que fueron a recoger las computadoras. Pero este viernes la directora va a recibir, le va a enviar de nuevo las contraseñas y los nombres de usuario. Los estudiantes van a recibir el primer día, el lunes en la mañana, y van a recibir sus horarios de la primera semana vía Teams. Los estudiantes van a recibir las clases y los horarios vía Skyward en la semana del agosto 24, o sea, la primera semana cuando empiecen. Y a este tiempo debe de procesar todos los horarios y hacer los requerimientos de cambio, pero no podemos asegurarles de que vamos a poderle garantizar esos cambios.
In terms of expectations for virtual school, we will not be requiring uniforms in the first semester. Students can wear free dress like they normally would on a Friday, even when we return to campus. We do expect that when students are on camera, they are fully dressed and in a way that is appropriate. Similarly, students should not be posting inappropriate pictures on any forums or Teams chats, and the backgrounds of any of their calls should be something that is school appropriate. Students are expected to be respectful with peers and teachers, just like they would if they were on campus. And if a student is not meeting those expectations, we'll be reaching out to parents and or muting them in the moment.
Como se le dijo anteriormente en algunas de las comunicaciones, no se le va a requerir que usen uniforme a los estudiantes, pero sí se les pide que por favor que estén completamente vestidos y con ropa apropiada para la escuela. Los estudiantes no deben de postear ninguna fotos ni nada, ni escribir nada inapropiado en ninguna de las plataformas o forums de Schoology ni de Teams. Los estudiantes también, el background, lo que es la parte de atrás de los estudiantes, queriendo decir el trasfondo de los estudiantes de la escuela debe ser apropiadamente para la escuela. O sea, que deben de estar en un lugar apropiado. Los estudiantes, se espera que los estudiantes actúen respetuoso con los profesores y con sus compañeros, aún estén en línea, igual que si estuvieran en el campus.
I want to share a little bit about communication. As a school, we're going to communicate regularly through family notes via email and school messenger calls. We also encourage you to follow our social media so that you can stay informed of what's going on campus. You can get in touch with your students' teachers through email, or you can call the front office number.
Ella quiere dejarles saber que cómo se van a comunicar con los profesores y es comunicándose con los profesores sea por vía de email o llamándonos a la oficina, al teléfono que le dimos anteriormente.
Generally speaking, we want to share a couple of tips for success for virtual school. Whenever possible, make sure students have a study space where they can focus with paper and writing utensils ready to go. And make sure that you're checking your student's Schoology account for grades and course updates. I'm going to share some links in just a moment for how you can get help I noticed some people saying they were having trouble with login information, and I'll post a link in just a moment for where you can go if you're having trouble logging in.
Ella le deja saber de la escuela virtual. Algunas recomendaciones para la escuela virtual son que tengan un espacio donde vayan a estudiar, que sea un espacio que el estudiante se pueda enfocar, darle acceso a su estudiante, a sus hijos, lo que sea de papel, material para escribir, utensilio, lápiz, y también darle recordatorio, notas de recordatorio, por ejemplo, del horario y todo eso. Ayudar al estudiante a crear un horario que le asegure durante el día que tengan tiempo de atender a la escuela y de terminar su trabajo. Chequear que los estudiantes en Schoology account, que las cuentas de Schoology de los grados y los cursos estén al día. También que le envíen mensajes o email o a los profesores, a las personas encargadas de los grados de cada académico por grado y también del equipo de soporte.
Students will need their YesPrep laptop starting next week. We know that some parents have not had an opportunity to collect the YesPrep laptops, and we will have some alternative pickup date. So if you have not yet received your laptop, we will be on campus tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. to do the next laptop distribution, which will also include distributing textbooks and novels that your students will need for this year. If you're having issues logging in, so if you can't find your password, use this link that's on the screen in order to request a new password. And if you have traditionally received meals through school, curbside meals will still be provided through Aldine, and you can find out more at aldinecafe.com.
Te deja saber que todos los estudiantes deben de tener una computadora para agosto 24. Si no la han recogido aún todavía, mañana jueves, agosto 20, entre el horario de 9 de la mañana a 12 del día, estaremos ahí distribuyendo las computadoras. Si ya tiene dificultades tratando de entrar a la cuenta, por favor copien ese enlace que está en pantalla, que es COVID-19 Technology Tab. Ahí pueden encontrar, pueden pedir un nuevo usuario y una nueva contraseña. También tendremos los alimentos, se continúan prohibiendo los alimentos. Para más detalle, vayan a aldincafe.com.
If you have a conflict with this pickup day and have not yet received your laptop, there will be a couple of by appointment only options next week. However, we strongly encourage, if you have the opportunity, that you come tomorrow to make sure your student has the best possible setup for school starting Monday.
Si no puede ir mañana, pues déjenos saber porque van a haber unos cuantos días, pero por cita solamente para poder entregarle la computadora de sus hijos.
And then finally, IDs will be distributed once we reopen. And for week 1, we're going to be sending out a week 1 guide that has links for where students need to go starting 7 a.m. on Monday and for any other technical issues that we might be having. We know with this virtual learning experience that we're going to run into technical issues, some of which we can anticipate and some of which we can't. So know that we will have staff standing by to provide tech support starting Monday if you're having issues logging in or with your device. And we'll send out the information for how to contact those folks through our family notes, which are going to go out by Friday. If you did not receive the last set of family notes, if you can drop your name in the chat and your email, but just send it to me, I'll make sure you get added to the family notes list. Yep, this whole PowerPoint is being filmed, and we will also send that out along with our family notes on Friday so that you have all of this information. And anyone who wasn't able to join will also have access to it.
Okay, le deja saber que de las preguntas que los IDs van a ser distribuidos una vez que reabramos en personas. También para soporte, si necesitan, le van a mandar una guía para la primera semana que será mandado vía las notas de la familia. Eso será el sábado, el viernes. Y esta sección que estamos teniendo hoy va a ser está siendo grabada y podrán tener acceso, que también le van a enviar ahí cómo accesar esta sección el viernes.
I want to pause here before I start talking about what to expect in terms of our cultural support this year to answer any questions that you have about health and safety or about how classes are going to look this year. If you have any questions at this point, if you can type them into the chat and I'll address them whole group.
Si tiene alguna pregunta antes de ya pasar a la siguiente sección, le pide que por favor la pongan en el chat para contestarla.
So one question I saw is around receiving passwords. If a student was with us last year, their password should be the same. If that's not working, this is the link that you can go to request a new password. Yep, okay, the next question I see is what will our social distancing standards be? Once we have a date by which we know we'll be returning to campus, we'll build out our safety and security procedures. We know that we'll have limited class sizes and limited transitions. We're going to work closely with our Aldine partners to determine the exact procedures in the building, but we anticipate that we'll have temperature checks and that students will be required to wear masks in all of their classrooms, and that we will have things like plexiglass dividers in the classrooms. We can't say at this point exactly how students will be seated, since we will need to seat all of the students who request to be on campus. So once we know the numbers of students will be on campus, we'll be dividing them up into the smallest cohorts we can and separating them as much as possible in the classroom. Let me go down the list. Parent notes are sent via email, the email that we have on file that we sent for your Skyward login. If you did not receive parent notes and you would like to, drop your email address in the message to me privately and I'll make sure you get added to the parent notes. That's how we'll be communicating some of the most updated information, like safety and security procedures or the opportunity to make your next selection, whether you want to be virtual or in person, as we get closer to the start of the school year. Your students' Yes Prep email and password. If you've received their laptop, you should have gotten a paper along with that had that information for how they log in. If not, the link that's on the screen is the best place to go to request a new login information. The class schedules are going to be available in Skyward, which is the system you used for enrollment, and they will be available there early next week.
Hello.
Let me go through. Social distancing on transportation, there will be a limit to the number of students on each bus. And once we know the date by which we'll return, we'll send you more information about what the bus procedures are going to look like. How will students use Teams differently than Schoology? Essentially, Teams will be for the videos, so students will be on a video call like this in Teams, but all of their classwork will still live on Schoology. So they'll use Schoology similar to how they have in the past. They'll use Teams for the live instruction portion. At this point, I don't have we don't have a designated cap for the number of students per class. Our goal is to keep it under 25, but it's going to depend on the number of students who are choosing to return to campus. And we will have more guidelines around that once we have our date for return to the building. I'm going to share in a moment. There's a question about the link for Schoology passwords. I'll share out that link in just a moment when we get to the end. There's a question about calculators. This has come up. We are taking stock of our calculators to figure out what we can distribute. In the guide that you're going to get later this week, there is also a website that you can use that has the same calculator functionality, and we'll be sharing that information. So if your student does not have a calculator on day one for their math classes, there is a site that they can use to make sure that they're able to keep up with that information. In terms of college counseling, students who are juniors and seniors will be in a seminar class starting the first week of school when they're virtual. So they'll receive all the information from their college counselors through that course, and the college counselors will be reaching out to them one-on-one for their individualized counseling. The calculator site is free. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I think I've hit most of the questions that were in the chat. The other question I heard was, will Eisenhower kids still be allowed to walk through the Yes Prep hallway? We do not yet have our finalized procedures in terms of how we're interacting with the Big Ike side of the building. So as we work with them to determine the procedures, and that's going to include hallway transitions, entrance, exit, and lunches, those are all procedures that we're finalizing with them in the moment, and we will be able to share all of that with you before you need to make your decision around whether you want your student to be in the building or continue working virtually. So I don't have a finalized set of information about that yet, but as soon as I do, I'll share it. Okay, I want to move on and share a little bit about culture. We want to be strategic this year, especially knowing that we're in a virtual space that can be really challenging, to ensure that students have space for community and connection. So we will continue to have advisory every single day for students to connect with one another and with an adult on campus and get all of their questions answered. We're also committed to striving towards equity and engaging in conversations around identity, bias, and race, and celebrating the racial and cultural identities of our students. And that will also take place through things like advisories as well as programming throughout the year.
En cuanto a la cultura y a la comunidad, todavía tenemos estrategias que estamos creando en los espacios donde los estudiantes se deben de conectar, aún estén en un espacio, aún estén virtualmente. Los estudiantes tendrán su tiempo de advisory, de consejería con los profesores para implementar estrategias entre los estudiantes y en las aulas. La equidad, estamos comprometidos a crear un campus antirracista que empodere a los estudiantes donde se escuchen las voces de del personal, recibe entrenamiento reciben entrenamiento y los estudiantes serán involucrados en discusiones de identidad, de sus razas, para celebrar estudiantes, para celebrar a los estudiantes, para celebrar sus razas y, perdón, su cultura, sus identidades.
There are probably a number of questions that you have around things like demerits and positive points that'll take place during virtual learning. Students are going to get a lot of information about this in the first couple of weeks. Our primary goal, first and foremost, is that we're supporting students and being as successful as possible in the virtual setting, and that we're working with you if there are concerns about behavior or about academic or social or emotional, any kind of challenges that a student may be facing. We will be operating with a Yes Prep behavioral system like we have in the past that includes things like demerits, and we'll give students a lot more information about what those behaviors will look like when we get into Culture Week next week. We will continue to offer advisory and other social and emotional programming throughout the year, regardless of whether your students are in a virtual or an in-person session.
Aún las clases van a ser virtual, el aprendizaje va a ser virtual, se le tendrá como quiera lo que es la cultura, lo que es un sistema de disciplina, de comportamiento de los estudiantes en el área de aprendizaje virtual. Seguiremos los reglamentos de YESPA para el aprendizaje virtual. Aún te seguirán teniendo consejería y también se le dará soporte socioemocional.
In the short term, if there is a need that you have for yourself or for your student, we encourage you, that is social or emotional in nature, we encourage you to reach out to Ms. Waters, our student support counselor.
Si
All right.
tienen algo que le preocupe en cuanto a lo socioemocional, por favor que se comuniquen con la señora Ms. Waters.
All right, I want to pause again for other questions. One question that I see in the chat is, will students be able to participate in groups like athletics? We are going to be following the guidelines from UIL and from Aldine ISD. So right now, for Eisenhower High School, all of their clubs and athletics are postponed until September 8th. At the point at which they begin again, our Yes Prep students will be able to participate. So the guidance around which clubs and athletics and music and performance is taking place, and how practices and performances or games will look, will all come through Aldine. So I encourage you to follow Aldine communication if you are on a sports team or in the band or in another organization like that. We will not, even if we are still virtual, if they have returned to practice, you'll have the opportunity to do that. All right, if you have any other questions, please take a moment to drop them in the chat. And if you are one of the campus leaders on the call and you notice there's something I haven't addressed, please feel free to jump in. There's a question around demerits for masks. We will be holding students accountable to following those social and health mandates once we return to campus. The exact ladder of consequences will outline with those students once they're back on campus, but we do want to make sure that we're acting in a way that's protecting the safety of the students and the staff members who are on campus. Ms. Cabrera, for the students who are in virtual learning, for the most part, those classes will be live rather than in video. So the students will be expected to log in at a given time and will be in a conversation like this one where the teacher will be teaching live. And that's a change from last year. If you can translate that one for me. looks like she may have stepped away. En los clases virtuales,
I'm sorry. I was talking and I was mute. Le pido disculpas,
Okay.
estaba hablando y estaba en mute, disculpe. Para los estudiantes, una pregunta que hicieron sobre si los estudiantes iban a estar en vivo o en video. No, los estudiantes van a ser requeridos que estén en vivo con los profesores. No va a ser en video. Algunos periodos van a tener para completar su trabajo, pero van a estar en vivo con los profesores, no en video. Eso contestó la pregunta.
Yep. Students will receive their class schedules in Skyward, and they will get them Tuesday afternoon. Their advisory teacher will walk them through how to find those schedules. Yep,
los horarios se le van a enviar el martes en la tarde y su profesor de advisory, queriendo decir el profesor principal del aula, lo va a llevar, lo va a caminar, lo va a llevar, le va a enseñar, le va a guiar sobre cómo van a usar los horarios y cuáles son los horarios.
We're going to share this PowerPoint as well as a first week of school guide that has links for where exactly to go on Monday morning. And if you need tech support, we'll share that guide through our family notes and on our Facebook and Instagram. So if you know someone who wasn't present, we'll make sure we have it available for them.
Va a haber una guía que se va a postear en Instagram y en Facebook para que la tengan ahí sobre los pasos a dar a partir del lunes. Si ustedes conocen algún estudiante que no haya estado en esta sección hoy, por favor, déjenle saber. Algún compañero de clase.
Another question that I see is, will we have electives with Ike? The answer is yes. While we are virtual, those electives will also be virtual. They'll live through Schoology. And then if you choose to return to the building, we will have in-person electives and we'll continue to have virtual electives. So while the electives may look a little bit different, we will still have students that are sitting in Yes Prep electives.
Las clases selectivas serán con Eisenhower, Audin, y si van a estar, y algunas van a ser virtuales y otras van a ser en persona, según esté el estudiante aprendiendo.
Great question. Yes, we will still have family gatherings at the end of each week. Every Friday during advisory, we will have some sort of social gathering, whether it's whole school, by advisory, or by grade level, so that we have that opportunity for some fun and culture building within each week.
Sí, aún todavía van a tener lo que es las juntas, sea virtual, sea por grado, pero sí va a haber alguna forma de que los estudiantes se junten e interactúen.
All right, if you have any questions that you put in the chat that I have not seen, they may have just gotten lost, go ahead and add those in. Again, I want to make sure I've answered any questions that you have. And like I said, we'll share all of this information on our social media, and be on the lookout in your email this week for our most updated family notes, which will include links to everything you need for the first week of school and all of the places that will be providing technical support now and in the first week of school if you're having trouble with logging in or with anything else. And if you've shared that info in the chat already, I'll make sure to pass it along to the appropriate stakeholders.
Ms. Cosberry le pregunta si tienen, valga la redundancia, alguna pregunta, que por favor que la pongan ahí, la coloquen en el chat y le va a enviar los enlaces para que tengan ahí de cómo estar en Schoology y todo lo que tienen que saber antes del lunes cuando la clase van a empezar.
If you have not received family notes, we sent some out last week. So if you didn't get those and want to be added to the family notes list, if you can send me a private chat message with your email address, I'll make sure we get you added to the list. That's where we'll share the most robust information over the course of the year in both English and Spanish. So we want to make sure that you are getting that information.
Si usted no ha recibido las informaciones familiares que se envían cada viernes, por favor envíe su email a Ms. Goldsberry aquí en el chat privado para ella poderle agregar a las comunicaciones familiares que se envían cada viernes, debido a que ahí es donde está la información más robusta para los padres.
The other question I see in the chat is, how will testing work this year? We are going to follow the guidance that we get from the nation and the state. So as of right now, we expect that students will participate in STAR testing, AP testing, and SAT testing. Some of those will happen virtually, some of them in the spring, maybe in person again. Right now, our plan is that all STAR testing happens online. And then exams for courses will take place in whatever modality the student is participating in. So if they're in person, it'll be in person. If it's online, it'll be a virtual exam, and the teacher will work with the student and set expectations around how that happens in a way that ensures that everyone's able to participate fully and that we're reducing the likelihood of any cheating. Not that I would expect that from students, but in that virtual setting. So if you are virtual, you'll do all your coursework virtually.
En cuanto a los exámenes de STARS, este año sí van a empezar, y si están por lo pronto van a empezar virtualmente, pero luego en la primavera serán quizás en persona, que lo tomarán, pero de todas maneras en el formato que esté recibiendo el estudiante, las clases, sea virtual, sea remota o en persona, si van a recibir los exámenes, los profesores lo guiarán y le dejarán saber cómo lo van a recibir.
And then, like I mentioned, those family notes are going to go out by Friday, so be sure to check your email on Friday. Sometimes they get sent to your spam or clutter, so just be on the lookout to make sure that they land in a place where you can see them.
Que estén pendientes de los mensajes que van a ser enviados los viernes. Ms. Goldsberry, there's a question they are saying that, how would I find out that my student is doing the work online and doing their homework?
Yep. The best way to do that is going to be through Schoology. You'll have the opportunity to follow along with your students' work in Schoology, and we'll send out information if you're new to campus next week about how you access Schoology to keep up with things like grades and assignments.
De la mejor manera que va a saber cómo su estudiante hizo las tareas y las asignaciones que se le han dado es a través de la plataforma de Schoology. La semana que entra, después de agosto 24, cuando empiecen la clase, ustedes recibirán cómo entrar a Schoology para que puedan estar al tanto y mantenerse al día a los padres de las asignaciones que están pendientes sus hijos por entregar y de las tareas, etcétera, etcétera.
Other questions? Yes, we will have common assessments. Some of them will likely be virtual. And how were students chosen for AP classes? At the end of last year, students received a recommended set of courses based on their grades and assessments in the previous year, and students had the opportunity to select whether they wanted to accept that recommendation and be in those courses, or whether they wanted to make the adjustment. So for the most part, student schedules, including AP assignments, are based on that course request process that happened at the end of the year. I'll stay on for a minute to answer any more questions. Like I said, more information is coming soon. The one other thing I wanted to, and I see some other questions coming through, I'll answer them in just a second. The one other thing I wanted to let you guys know is on Thursday, August 24th, we'll be having our school-wide planning team. This is where we get input from families to finalize our goals for the year and some of our key actions. If you are interested in participating, you can either drop your name and email in the chat or email your name to miranda.evans@yesprep.org, and we will invite you to that time. That's absolutely not mandatory, but we always like to make sure we're getting input from families as we're making our plans for the upcoming year. Other questions I see in the chat. Is there early release for seniors? Yes. We're finalizing the schedules right now. Once we return to campus, there definitely will be some seniors who have early release if they've met that criteria. And yes, 11th graders will get SAT practice and review as part of your junior seminar course.
Algunas de las preguntas fueron que si los estudiantes del 12 grado tendrían días que saldrían un poco más temprano, dijo que sí, y también van a ayudarlo a los estudiantes con la preparatoria para los SATs. Si tienen alguna otra pregunta, a favor de ponerla en el chat.
All right. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being here and for your patience. I know that this is not an ideal school year for anyone. I want you to know that we're really committed to ensuring that we're continuing to provide great culture and social support for students and keep them on track for their college readiness. We know that there's going to be a learning curve as we transition back to virtual learning. So we ask for your patience with us, and we commit to being patient with you as we work through those issues together. And we're just really grateful to have you as part of the Eagle family this year.
Ya le deja saber que sabemos que van a haber muchos retos y muchas con el asunto del aprendizaje virtual, que le agradecemos y estamos contentos de que ustedes sean nuestras familias águilas de nuestra escuela y que nos tengan paciencia por las dificultades y el asunto entre lo que terminamos y nos adaptamos todos a esta nueva manera de aprender.
And then with that, like I said, we'll record this and send it out. If you have any questions that haven't been answered, I'll hang out and we'll be happy to answer those. And if not, we will see you or your student virtually on Monday at 7 a.m. Get that coffee and alarm clock ready. It's going to be an early morning.
Les dejamos saber que si tienen alguna otra pregunta, pues la pongan ahí en el chat. Ella va a estar unos cuantos minutos contestando las preguntas. Si no, nos vemos el lunes, agosto 24 a las 7 de la mañana en punto. Que tengan los relojes, las alarmas puestas, seteada para levantarse temprano, la taza de café para levantar a esos estudiantes temprano. Pues nos vemos el lunes a las 7 de la mañana. Si tienen alguna pregunta, de nuevo les repito, por favor, de ponerla en el chat. Ella va a estar unos minutos, Ms. Goldsberry, para contestar las preguntas que ustedes tengan.
Someone is asking, do you send your school email? For the family notes, you can use whatever email you prefer.
There's a question that her daughter.
Yep. If you're having trouble logging onto Schoology, I'm going to type, if you can send an email, if it's a Schoology specific issue, if you can email jessie.crandall@yesprep.org. She is our Schoology guru, and she will be able to solve that question most quickly. So if it's other issues, use the form I linked earlier, but if it's Schoology specific, email Ms. Crandall.
Si para la persona que dijo que su hija no podía entrar a Schoology, si es de Schoology específicamente, por favor, ella le acaba de poner un email ahí en el chat, jessica.crandall@yesprep.org. Envíele un email a esa persona diciendo que no puede entrar a Schoology. Solamente si es de Schoology la dificultad para entrar. Si es otro asunto, pusimos un link anteriormente. Ms. Goldsberry, could you put the link with the COVID-19 in the chat?
Yep, I sure will. And while I do that, someone asked, can a student create a Skyward account? The answer is yes. The students, when they are logged onto their computer through their Yes Prep email, should automatically be, when they go to Skyward, it should bring them automatically into their own account. And we're going to show them how to do that during advisories on Tuesday. The other question that I saw was around clubs and organizations. We will definitely have clubs and groups this year. I don't know off the top of my head exactly which ones we'll be able to offer, but within the first couple weeks of school, we'll be able to share that information. And I'm sharing 2 links in the chat right now. The first is if you can't log onto your device or are having trouble with Teams, and if you're having other technical issues, that's the link you can go to. And don't worry about sending stuff to the wrong place. If you put it in the wrong survey, it's okay. We'll find it and make sure you get the answer you need.
Le puso dos enlaces más para si necesitan, si tienen dificultad en Teams o si tienen dificultad técnica. Ahí están los dos links para que puedan accesar a esa persona y esa persona ahí lo puedan ayudarle.
All right, if you have any other questions, drop them in the chat. I'll stay on. If not, you're good to go. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. And be on the lookout for the link for Monday morning's kickoff session.
Bueno, si no tienen más preguntas, pueden sentirse libres de retirarse y estén al pendiente del viernes del link para empezar el lunes. El viernes le va a enviar el link para empezar el lunes. Gracias por estar aquí hoy.